So as you can see from the title description, I did in fact spend over $1 million sports betting in 2024, and it was full of a bunch of highs and a bunch of lows. And in this video, I'm gonna break down everything month by month, going through every sports book and every type of bet that I made and kind of breaking it down so you can see what my results were by the end of the year. Before I get into it, I want to explain my betting style a little bit. I use positive EV betting using the Oddsjam tool. And what positive EV betting is doing, it basically looks at the entire market and how every book is setting their lines and find those books that are setting their lines off from all the other ones, and then from there it says this is most likely a bet that you should make that should yield you a positive return on the money you put down. And this strategy is good because you don't have to know a lot about the sports. You just have to know about the data itself, because all the sports books already tell you exactly, where they set the line. So if one is standing out from 50 other ones, then you want to focus in on that particular one. And another thing to note about positive EV betting is that you won't hit on 80% of your bets. You won't hit on a majority of your bets, but over the long run, all the bets you're making, you're going to yield a positive return. So it's not about winning every bet, but it's about making money off it in general. So I started using Oddsjam and positive EV betting last NFL season, at the start of last NFL season in August of 2023. And in 2023 alone, I was able to yield $5,000 per my Pickett app. And this is the app I'll be using to go through all my bets and explain it, because what Pickett does is basically gives you an automation. It syncs every book up to the software so that it'll read off automatically whether you win or lose bets and keep track of all your bets accordingly. And this is good because this doesn't hide anything and it's very direct in my results. So if I have bad results, it's going to show up here as well. However, this doesn't account for all the bonus money that I made off these sports books with promotions. So without any further ado, let's get it. So January was around the time that the NFL playoffs was going on, and it was the middle of NBA season. So there was a lot of opportunities for bets to go on. However, because of this, I got my butt whooped in basketball, both the NBA and college basketball. And that dragged my total on FanDuel down significantly. However, I was able to be carried a little bit by Caesars, DraftKings, Betfred to kind of stop my losses. And, I didn't do too bad on the month, but I ultimately did end up down. And with a little over 1,750 bets, I bet a total of about 116K, and it yielded me a negative return, and I lost a little bit on the month, and I was down $373 for the month. But don't click off yet. It's going to get better. It's going to get better, trust me. February was similar to January. However, there wasn't as much, NFL going on. With the only thing going on at the time was the Super Bowl. I was able to be up significantly with the NBA and also significantly up with soccer. However, college basketball dragged me down completely. And at that time, I started to do a little testing on why college basketball was so sucky, so trash at the time. And I realized that college basketball on FanDuel was dragging me down. So FanDuel was kind of like a shark book in a sense for college basketball. So I kind of started adjusting my algorithm and my bet choices from there about college basketball in particular. Also around that time, I used some other software other than Oddsjam to try and, find different sources of finding profitable bets. I use other tools like Odds Shopper, smartbetter.ai, and I even pulled some bets off Reddit to be able to kind of get an edge on the market to varying results. And for February, I finished with a little under 1,300 bets, 111K total amount bet, and I made $4,200, so strong recovery from being down January. So, and to get the total amount I bet that month, I'm basically taking the profit I made that month and dividing it by the ROI, and that formula will give me the total amount that I had actually put into betting in general. So just to explain that. So moving on to March, I think baseball just started in March, if not in February. I'm not too big of a baseball fan, but it wasn't too much to report this month. Everything was a little bit of variance where every sports book did just fairly well or fairly bad, nothing drastic. However, I did do extremely good with soccer. So, that's how it turned out. And for March, I made a little under 1,000 bets, 94K total bet. And that gave me a profit of a little under $700. So April. Whew, April. So as you can see, I took off at some point in April. And this was mainly due to me doing this Reddit strategy that I found and basically doing a no home run strategy. I think I explained in a previous video. And I hit one of these for maybe like $5,000. However, I hit that one big time, but you know, most of the time I did not make money off it and it just dragged down, you know, my profit by the end of the month. However, I was able to be sustained by two main books, Caesar and Fliff, and they kind of carried up my total that month, even though I was doing this stupid strategy of no home runs. And also this month, DraftKings started limiting me, so I just stopped using them because I could only make like $20 bets on their platform, and I didn't feel like it was worth my time. So for April, I bet a little under 1,000, you know, bets again, 150K total bet, and that gave me a profit of a little over $1,100. May was the dark times. This was around the time that mainly baseball was the most booming thing, and you know, I was already doing these stupid no home run bets. Basketball was in the playoffs, so there wasn't as many games. Of course, NFL wasn't going on. It was off season. So I really only had one thing to rely on as far as making bets, and that was baseball. And my bets on baseball were absolutely terrible. I lost a lot of money on baseball this month. This was my worst performing month by far. And, you know, it kind of spurred me from then on to kind of rethink my strategy. You know, as baseball season was early, to rethink my strategy as far as how I was going to bet on baseball going forward for the rest of the baseball season. But for May, I made about 280 bets, which was only 26K total bet. However, I lost about $2,500 that month. So in June, things didn't really get any better because it was just baseball, like we said. And while I bet a lot less and kind of tried to work on my baseball betting strategy, I still went down significantly with betting on baseball. However, I was kind of kept up by soccer. So for June, I made even less bets, only 220 bets, 18K total bet. And however, I lost about $900 again in June. Boo, baseball. July, the sun started coming out again. And while again, all we had was baseball, I believe my variance started to turn around with baseball, and I started to adjust my strategy and make very, very selective bets. And that allowed me to be up, you know, a good amount with baseball and kind of recover a lot of the losses that I made throughout the baseball season. And because I was being so selective with my bets, I only made about 140 bets, only about $10,000 bet in July. And it gave me a small return of about $400. So it came off the back of 2 losing months, and I'm not complaining with any profit that I'm making. And then we move on to August, where thank God football came back. Preseason NFL was going on. College football was back in effect. And that spurred a lot of growth in my bets. And during this month, I was using 3 books primarily. That was FanDuel, Fliff, and Caesars. And I was up with all 3 of those. And with my betting ramping up a little bit more in August, I made 220 bets for 14K total bet, which yielded a pretty good $2,000 return. So then we move on to September, where NFL season was in full effect, college football was in full effect, NBA was starting to start back up with the preseason and whatnot. It was a lot of opportunity to make a lot of bets. And around this time, I started a lot more sports books as well, you know, instead of just my 3 that I could use from the previous month. I started Underdog, Thrills, Rebet, and Profit X. And to explain these books a little bit, Underdog is like a DFS, a daily fantasy sports platform where you have to pick like, you know, 2 to 6 kind of different bets and kind of pair them together. And if you were to hit on it, you would, you know, get a huge return on it. Similar to prizepicks or better and whatnot, where Thrills and Rebet are kind of this kind of sweepstakes sports betting platform where you could play with fake money and you could play with real money, you know, to kind of make these bets. And I think they do that as a way to get around all the regulations as far as sports books and everything goes. Whereas Profit X is a sports betting exchange that kind of is only peer-to-peer betting, where you are betting directly against someone else, not the sports book itself, where lines can be set any which way. And all the sports book does is take a kind of cut off the top of whatever profit you make off that. And this month, I must say, was completely carried by Underdog, where I made over $8,000 sports betting with them. And I made money betting on other sports books as well. However, Underdog was the creme de la creme around that time, and whew, I was so happy with it. And for September, I was up massively with so many more bets to make. I made about 700 bets. I bet about 59K for a total profit of about $7,500. And then October rolled around, where we had MLB, NFL, NCAA, and most importantly, we had the NBA in full effect. A lot of bets to be made. However, I did terribly with basketball to start, the NBA season. I lost a lot with that, as well as the NHL. However, I was carried heavily by football. So, I'm not complaining. Shout out football. And also this month, I started 3 more sports books: Novig, Sports Trade, and Better, where Novig and Sports Trade are like the peer-to-peer sports betting platform that I explained, like Profit X, and Better is more of like Underdog. This month, I also stopped betting on Caesars, where they limited me to the point that it kind of wasn't worth, betting with them anymore. However, the most important change in sports books was Underdog. They saw me eating them alive in September, and by October, they had limited me down to making only $25 bets each bet, where I still was able to make a lot of profit off them, $900, in the month. It kind of dampened my spirits. I can't, hit them for like $5,000, $8,000 again. So for October, I was able to get my bets up again to about 1,200 bets, 138K total amount bet. And that gave me a profit of $2,400. So up. November, I made a whole separate video on November, and I want y'all to go look at that. But look at this graph. I went from poof to poof, and man, was it a roller coaster. But basically, to summarize, I was down on everything, and these sports betting exchanges hurt me significantly. However, I was able to recover by the end of the month and end up finishing in the positive. So for about 1,500 bets made, 245K put down, I yielded $3,500 in profit. So we finished really, really strongly that month. And finally, we get to the last month of December. And boy, was it a last month. First of all, I tried to do different sports betting strategies like I always do for whatever reason. So I tried a new sports betting tool called Oddsview that kind of does the same thing as Oddsjam does, but I wanted to see if their, methods were a little bit better. And it's still kind of pending in my mind whether it is better. Another method I used was Oddsjam Trends, which was the tool that basically showed all their past performance, whether it's their last 10 or the years of totality, and you can kind of pick your own bets from there. And I did this to, varying, degrees of success. I wouldn't recommend it. However, outside of that, and Flip finally limited me from making so much money off them. Everything else went right. Even though I started down $4,000 after 1,400 bets, 222K invested, I yielded over $10,000 profit that month. And that let me finish off the year with about 29K in profit sports betting. However, there's a little bit more because, like I explained, Pickit is a platform that automatically syncs your bets. Every sports book isn't, necessarily synced up with Pickit that you can kind of import all the bets you made. So there were a couple sports books that I did not include in this. So I just wanted to give those really quickly. There was a sports betting exchange called Cut that, in my opinion, it sucks. Do not get it. But I was down about $111. It wasn't really many bets ever up there, and it's kind of wonky platform, for you to use. But I was down $111. Then we have Rebet Prop City, where I did include Rebet into, these total numbers, but they also have an offshoot of their sports book, which is Rebet Prop City, where it allows you to bet on, player props and whatnot. And for that, I was able to be up about $700, you know, on their player props. Then I had a book that I started using briefly in December, where it's basically similar to like Flip or other books that are sweepstakes books. And they quickly limited me because they realized I was going to be a profitable bettor, and I was only able to make about $90 up there. Lastly, Bet365, which was a book I used way earlier in the year and eventually got limited, but it was a book that I started, you know, my Oddsjam journey with back in 2023, and they finally limited me in 2024. And whereas I don't use the platform anymore and I closed my account, so I can't exactly have the exact profit up there, I basically deposited around $2,000 into it, and per my, you know, bank statements, I withdrew about $9,000 from it. So, you know, I was up about an additional $7,000 using Bet365. So yeah, that was my 2024. I thoroughly enjoyed sports betting. It was so profitable for me. And I plan to continue to use some of these strategies and hopefully, you know, grow and, you know, do even better in 2025. So if there's any sports betting videos that you'd like me to make, just please comment down below. Like the video if it was helpful, if it gave you any insight on Oddsjam or sports betting or positive EV in general. And that's all I got. Peace, y'all. Yeah.